Across the Pearl River Estuary, engineers face powerful winds, rough water, and one of Asia's busiest shipping corridors. Construction vessels had to hold position precisely while enormous cargo ships continued moving through the active navigation channel. Before building could begin, drilling teams investigated the soft seabed and recovered samples from deeper supporting layers. Geological, tidal, current, and shipping data were combined to expose every major risk along the proposed crossing. The solution combined bridges, artificial islands, and an immersed tunnel, preserving critical clearances for ships and aircraft. Survey vessels transferred the design into the estuary, establishing a precise chain of control points across open water. Onshore, temporary quays and organized staging areas created the logistical backbone for the marine construction campaign. Guide frames, piling templates, and temporary steel systems were fabricated and checked before deployment offshore. Tugboats, barges, cranes, and survey vessels assembled into a coordinated fleet built for tightly controlled marine operations. The first positioning frame marked the moment this immense plan finally began taking physical shape on the water. Survey teams defined the West Artificial Island with widely spaced markers, long before any land appeared above the estuary. Deep mixing trials tested whether equipment could penetrate weak mud and local hard sand before the giant cylinders were installed. Deep mixing vessels strengthened controlled seabed cells, preparing the treated strip that would receive the island's steel perimeter. With the seabed rechecked, guide systems fixed the line for 57 cylinders. Keep watching as land begins to emerge. More giant cylinders were aligned and vibrated down sequentially, extending the perimeter while obvious gaps still remained. Crews sealed and inspected the joints between installed cylinders, preserving the West Island's precise kite-shaped boundary. The 57th cylinder closed the perimeter, but the enclosed space was still mostly water, not a finished island. Sand and selected fill entered in controlled zones, replacing enclosed water layer by layer as the island gradually formed. Compaction equipment and settlement instruments verified that each reclaimed zone could safely support the structures above. Only after the ground stabilized did the first working platform emerge, ready for the tunnel transition below. Engineers transferred the tunnel centerline onto the new island, fixing the underground structure's exact position. Excavators lowered the site in controlled stages, keeping the excavation contained instead of opening one enormous pit. Piles and internal bracing restrained the excavation walls against earth and water pressure below sea level. Anchors, reinforcement, and mass concrete formed a base slab designed to resist the structure's powerful buoyant forces. Reinforced concrete walls rose in separate pours, steadily defining the tunnel's transition structure beneath the island. Wall and roof sections gradually enclosed the transition box, although the operational tunnel entrance remained unfinished. Waterproofing, drainage layers, and controlled backfill protected the buried structure before the island's surface was restored. Inside a specialized smart factory, production lines assembled steel shell tunnel units for the 8-lane immersed crossing. Welds, partitions, gaskets, embedded pipes, and sensors were checked before self-compacting concrete entered the sealed steel compartments. Smart pumping systems filled the steel shell compartments continuously, controlling drop height and fill level to prevent hidden voids. Sensors, cooling circulation, and pump data tracked strength development, while engineers searched every compartment for possible voids. Inspectors verified overall geometry, steel shell welds, compartment filling, and functional surfaces after the concrete reached acceptance strength. Compartments, joints, and seals underwent watertight testing, because one hidden defect could compromise the entire operation. Ballast pipes, tanks, towing points, and marine equipment gave engineers precise control over floating and sinking. The first immense tunnel element was now watertight and structurally complete, yet still trapped inside the casting basin. Water entered the basin gradually, transferring the element's weight from temporary supports to its own buoyancy. As buoyancy took over, carefully balanced ballast kept the newly floating structure level and stable. The floating element left the basin and connected to an integrated transport installation vessel, supported by coordinated tugboats. The integrated vessel, tugs, survey craft, and safety teams locked towing lines, ballast, formation, and the tidal window. The roughly 80,000-ton element traveled through controlled shipping lanes toward its prepared immersion position offshore. Before excavation, survey vessels remapped the seabed to confirm where every section of the tunnel trench should run. Dredging removed soft material in controlled sections, gradually forming the trench without disturbing the entire corridor. Sonar measurements verified width, depth, slope, and alignment before foundation material could be placed below. A specialized stone-laying vessel placed and leveled selected material to create the precisely graded foundation bed. The integrated vessel held the element over the accepted trench. Subscribe to Engineering Revealed for more full-process mega projects. Guide cables, lowering lines, moorings, and ballast connections were checked before the critical immersion began. Ballast water entered in sequence, increasing the element's weight until it started descending beneath the surface. Hydraulic guides corrected tiny offsets as the element approached the receiving structure at the required elevation. Controlled pressure drew the joint faces together, compressing the gasket into the tunnel's first watertight connection. Ballast seated the element on its stone foundation before protective material locked the structure against movement. The second element underwent the same rigorous checks of bulkheads, ballast systems, seals, and towing hardware. A coordinated tug formation carried it through a protected marine corridor toward the next prepared trench section. Mooring lines positioned the floating element directly above the trench and aligned it with the installed section. Sequential ballasting and tensioned lowering cables guided the second element slowly through the moving water. Hydraulic systems and guide cables corrected small deviations before the two enormous concrete faces could meet. Pressure then pulled the new element into the existing gasket, forming another controlled watertight connection. The operation repeated element by element, extending the tunnel gradually, while much of the alignment remained unfinished. Precisely placed stone locked the tunnel's sides, protecting the installed elements from lateral movement. Additional backfill formed a protective cover against anchors and heavy maritime loads above the buried tunnel. Installed tunnel chains advanced from both sides toward the center, yet a clear closure gap still separated them. Inside E-23's enlarged end, a prefabricated push-out final joint waited for underwater deployment toward E-24. The fleet carried E-23 and its nested final joint into the controlled closure zone between E-22 and E-24. Mooring and positioning systems held E-23 on the exact axis, elevation, and heading above the final gap. Ballast and lowering systems eased E-23 onto the last foundation bed while maintaining safe clearance at both ends. Hydraulic controls corrected tiny offsets, fixing E-23's precise geometric relationship with E-22 and E-24 before closure. Like a giant drawer, the prefabricated final joint pushed outward from E-23 until it sealed against E-24. Pumps dewatered the isolated chamber, while engineers monitored pressure, leakage, and movement before allowing internal access. Post-welding, structural grouting, secondary waterproofing, and sealed access holes made the final joint permanently continuous. Drainage channels, firewater pipes, cable supports, and protected conduits were installed progressively along the raw tunnel. Reinforcement and concrete formed the roadway slab section by section, while other areas remained active construction zones. Ventilation, fire suppression, and monitoring equipment were installed zone by zone throughout the enclosed tunnel. Power cables, lighting, and control systems followed, creating the infrastructure needed for safe future operation. Specialized paving equipment laid and compacted the final road surface over the accepted structural slab. Attention then shifted to the main bridge, where offshore drilling confirmed the foundation conditions beneath each support. Floating cranes lowered enormous steel casings through guide frames, fixing the position of each board pile. Deep drilling, reinforcement cages, and controlled concrete placement created the piles supporting the bridge above. Inside the offshore cofferdam, a massive concrete pile cap joined the tower piles before any tower legs appeared. Two enormous suspension bridge anchorages rose in layers, built to resist the pull of the future main cables. Integrated climbing systems raised both concrete tower legs through repeated reinforcement, formwork, pouring, and curing cycles. A massive crossbeam fixed the spacing between tower legs before climbing construction continued above it. Successive cycles brought both suspension towers to their final 270-meter height, ready to receive the main saddles. Heavy main cable saddles were hoisted and fixed atop both towers, defining the cable path between the anchorages. Pilot lines pulled aerial catwalks across the 1,066-meter span, following the future sag of the main cables. The compacted main cables received cable bands and vertical suspenders, preparing the cable-mounted crane for deck lifting. A barge carried the first aerodynamic steel box segment beneath midspan during a tightly controlled weather window. The cable-mounted crane lowered 4 lifting points, connected to the segment, and balanced the load before departure. Successive segments rose from barges, connected to suspenders, and were welded together as the deck expanded from midspan. Across 213 steel box segments, repeated lifts extended the center and side spans, while major gaps remained visible. Surveyors measured elevation, alignment, and the remaining gap, while adjustment systems prepared both deck ends for closure. The cable-mounted crane lifted the final segment into the gap, holding it suspended for precise alignment. Hydraulic alignment and controlled welding closed the final seams, creating a structurally continuous main span. Load trucks stopped at prescribed positions, while sensors measured every response. Stay with us for the completed link. Bridges, islands, and tunnel now form one operating corridor across the estuary. Subscribe for our next full construction journey.